You have no idea how high my anticipation levels were for this one. A regular bedfellow of Kirby's Dream Land and Link's Awakening on any given top 25 list is the first portable entry in the gold standard franchise of run-and-gun shooter games. Originally, Contra was released in arcades, and then most famously on the NES and Famicom. In Europe, for whatever reason, the name Probotector was chosen, with a reskin of robots instead of humans. It's weird that the idea of humans gunning down other humans was too much for the European market, but it was okay for the original game to share a name with the US-funded rebel militias of mid-80s Nicaragua. This raised a lot of controversy at the time, especially considering that some of the levels could easily be interpreted as a Central American jungle. Of course, the game is thankfully unrelated to what was a shocking period of history, but it was a poor oversight on Konami's part nonetheless. It was changed by the time the sequel came out, but still. The original arcade and NES titles are 1 or 2 player. Here it's just 1. Taking place in the distant future, you control these 2 Rambo-style guys with massive machine guns and no shirts through various forests, up waterfalls, and around industrial wastelands, basically blowing the living hell out of anything that moves, human or otherwise. Ultimately, you've got to seek out and destroy the alien overlord invader. The first 2 NES games, Contra and Super C, are undeniable classics, and highly sought after games that are timeless. The Game Boy entry in the series borrows heavily from both of those games, and more than does each of them justice. The side-scrolling levels are accompanied by the vertical top-down ones from Super C. Wisely, the pseudo-3D stages from the first game were not attempted, and they look excellent. Everything is superbly proportioned for the littler screen. With brand new levels, it's not just a port, designed to accommodate for the reduced space. There's the usual endless cannon fodder of drones who run mindlessly towards you, amongst a scattering of unique enemies, and a whole roster of brand new bosses to fight. Nothing was merely copied here. It's all new, but unquestionably Contra. Thankfully, the button mashing necessary when you had the pea shooter is not here. Can you imagine trying to keep the screen still while smashing A over and over? You start with the automatic machine gun and can power it up with a really cool exploding flamethrower, a laser, and the famous spread shot. In fact, the spread shot is even more awesome in this game, as you can power it up a second time for more rapid fire, with absolutely no flicker or slowdown, by the way, and even more wickedly, a homing effect that causes all bullets to swarm straight for any antagonist. At first, this feels a bit like a cheese, but plenty of skill is still required, trust me. It's a tough, one-hit death game, but that's what you want from one of these. Life bars are for wussies. The controls are perfect, so progress is 100% down to your skill and response time. I personally think this is one example of a game that looks better on the Game Boy. Respective of medium, it's a bit blurry on the original DMG. If you can, take a moment to appreciate the level of detail in the animations of the backgrounds, the water moving on the first level, right the way through to the globular walls and flashing lights of later stages. The bosses look ridiculously good, with the first one being this particularly memorable submarine that's wider than the actual screen, shooting up at you from the water while you have to run back and forth on this bridge shooting downwards. Similarly, the music is absolutely stellar, with some instantly identifiable motifs that sound just as good, if not better than the originals the tracks are based on. Konami really knew how to crank some masterpieces out of the Game Boy's sound chip, and this is definitely up there with their best sounding stuff. The presentation and gameplay of Operation C can be heralded as a real pinnacle of Konami's Game Boy portfolio. It's mind-boggling how they pulled this off, and I have no qualms whatsoever about awarding Operation C a perfect score. Absolutely outstanding. Thanks so much for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts on the game down below, and if you can spare a second, give the review a quick thumbs up, it really helps out. Subscribe to the Portable Power Podcast for a new Game Boy review every day from Monday to Friday. Or alternately, new episodes of the podcast drop every Saturday and Sunday on whichever platform you get your pods. See you later on.